Why does switching providers sometimes take so long? The answer lies with one company that steers everything in the background: the grid operator. In this lesson, we cleanly separate three terms: electricity provider, default supplier, and grid operator. Let's recap quickly. The provider handles your contract and your bill. The default supplier is the provider you land with automatically, without choosing. And the grid operator? It runs the lines and meters, and it is the central point for every switch. Let's now look at it more closely. The grid operator is the company that knows who currently supplies a given supply point. Every supply point and every meter sits in its database. Important: a switch always runs through it. No provider can take over a meter unless the grid operator checks and confirms it. So it is the gatekeeper of every switch. This role is neutral. The grid operator sells you no electricity. It only manages the connection. How does a switch actually work? The customer does not send the request. The new provider does. It tells the grid operator, "I want to take over this supply point." Once the grid operator confirmation, the contract confirmation goes to the customer. That is exactly why the customer does nothing with the grid operator. We handle it. For the customer, the switch stays easy and invisible. A takeover needs two things to line up. First, the request from the new provider. Second, the cancellation with the old provider. A small example: someone moves in and signs no contract, so they land with the default supplier automatically. If a new provider later wants the meter, it needs both. When both match, the grid operator accepts the switch. Sometimes a switch takes longer. The reason is what we call clarification cases. A clarification case arises when something does not match. For example, the grid operator cannot find the supply point, or the previous customer's name does not match the request. Then the switch stalls, and the contract confirmation comes later. If you know this, you can calmly explain the wait to the customer. That way you look competent even when things snag. Finally, a practical trick. Do you want to know which provider a customer is with? Just call the grid operator. With the meter number, it tells you the current provider. With the meter number and the address, you can also check whether a switch has already happened. This number is your key to every piece of information. Note it down with every customer right away. Let's sum up. First, the grid operator runs meters and lines and checks every switch. Second, a switch needs a request and a cancellation. Otherwise, a clarification case arises. Third, with the meter number, the grid operator gives you any information. Next, you will learn how to calculate electricity and gas costs.